Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to my podcast, We Share, We Grow. I'm your host and holistic coach, Aoife Rafter. If you want to be empowered to take action in your self-development journey, then you are in the right place. We Share, We Grow will bring you closer to reaching your full potential through sharing and growing from the life-changing advice of my favourite health and wellness experts. I believe that we grow through what we go through, and together we can become abundant in all aspects of health and wellness despite our health challenges. I'm so excited to be part of your self-development journey, just as so many of you have been part of mine. So let's do this. Let's share and grow together. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to season 1 of my podcast, We Share, We Grow. I am very excited to introduce my next guest. She is someone who will definitely get the answers to a lot of your frequently asked questions in relation to female health in particular. She is an expert in the field of gynecology and shares incredibly helpful content with her 60,000 followers via her Instagram account. She's an advocate for women's health and produces the type of content and information that proves social media can be an incredible tool when it's used in this way. Please welcome this intelligent, caring soul, Dr. Sarah Murphy. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Aoife. Such a lovely intro.
Well, I've often thought for your account, I probably wasn't going to do you justice because I started following you a long time ago. I think it was like just after my radiotherapy treatment, and the stuff you were sharing was so helpful for me as someone going through cancer. It was really hard to find the information that I wanted out there, and there's not a lot of doctors that kind of do that. So like what kind of gave you the idea to start sharing as a doctor, and like how has that been? It's a bit different, like, and it's so good to see.
Yeah, so I suppose the thing that really started for me, I always liked social media and I always liked using it. But the thing that really like kicked it into gear was in 2019, which feels so weird to say, when COVID first landed. There was a lot of misinformation with regards to the COVID vaccine in pregnancy. And so what I was seeing was misinformation, social media being used for misinformation and kind of doctors in person promoting it. But I saw this big gap where it was young people my age who, get their information from things like social media. There wasn't the right target there. And just to sit at home and read all the misinformation and the scaremongering was infuriating. So I just started, sharing some of the facts and the studies about the COVID-19 vaccine and pregnancy. And it was really well received. And then it kind of just went from there that I was like, oh, maybe there's a bit of a, not in the market, but a gap in this, I don't know what you call it because it's not a
Whole
market.
field. Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
true though. Like I think there's a gap in that whole area in general. Like we have
yeah.
seen so much misinformation, and we've kind of learned to be more informed as, I suppose, listeners and viewers. So like it has been a great time to see proper accounts like yourself with the true hard facts about things, because yeah, definitely a lot of misinformation which scares people during an anxious time, which for you, like at the start, was COVID, and now you talk so much about pregnancy, gynecological issues, which are anxious times for sure. So it's great to see you do that. um I was also wondering, while I was coming up with some questions and topics, and I didn't ask you, did you always want to be a doctor, or like how did that start for you?
No, no, and sometimes you meet people who are doctors and you ask them, why, and they'll give you this really inspiring, profound story, and I don't have that. I had a very basic thing of I really liked science, and I suspected I would really like to work with people, and medicine was kind of combined the two of those really well. So I did it in college, really enjoyed it, and I now absolutely love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So it's just something I thought I would like, and thankfully I was right.
Thankfully you were, and thankfully you're obviously quite good at it. Especially online. Like I certainly know it's been hard to build following, and you have your 60,000 followers. You're just nearly at 60, and that says so much that people really need the information that you're sharing. So definitely thank you for that. You often share a lot about topics that I suppose are personal to me in relation to gynecological cancers and sexual health. And I'd love for you to kind of remind our listeners what they need to look out for and be aware about this, because I know once I started sharing my issues that I was having, like the kind of signs and symptoms for cervical cancer, which was like bleeding sporadically, bleeding during sex, a bit of discomfort during sex. Like so many of my girlfriends in our late 20s kind of thought this was the norm. Oh, that happens to me. That's not a big deal. And that still happens. I still get messages like that, and it frightens the life out of me. And I'm sure you get messages like that too. So I think it would be a nice time to kind of clear some stuff up.
Sure. So there's 5 different gynae cancers, which I suppose a lot of people don't realize or don't know. Some of the symptoms overlap, but there's some kind of that vary. And also, I suppose some of these cancers affect different age groups typically. So I don't know kind of what age the listeners here would be, but certainly cervical cancer is one that if they're our age is kind of one of the biggest ones to look out for. So it usually is something that will affect women between 30s and 50s. Now, like yourself, you can be younger or older than that. And it's exactly what you said there. So bleeding in between periods, so kind of irregular or unscheduled bleeding, bleeding after sexual intercourse, a change in your periods, whether they're getting longer or heavier, abnormal discharge, whether it changes color or changes smell, and then kind of pelvic pain, and that might be intermittently or maybe after sex. Now, in saying all of this, some of those symptoms can be your normal and some of them can mean something else, but they all deserve investigation and looking into because they may be something more sinister.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I think that the more I suppose we talk about those sort of things and educate one another, the better. And the same goes for the topic that is finally having a little bit of a shift, which is menopause.
Yes.
Now I totally had no clue about menopause, and you do share a lot about menopause, which is so helpful, Sarah, because genuinely I had no clue where to go for the information. I started getting menopausal symptoms when I was 28 because of the pelvic radiotherapy I had. So I did get to keep my ovaries after my hysterectomy, but then the radiotherapy did its job on what was left of those poor little ovaries. So that kind of started happening during COVID, like when I was isolating through the pandemic, which was like not a great time to go through any life-changing event. Um, but again, like no idea where to look for the information. Really also knew nothing about it because like in school, we're just kind of taught like, look out for your periods. This is what happens when you get your period, and you don't really need to worry about anything after your period because that's all there kind of is to it as a female. And I'd no clue like when you could get menopause, how you could get menopause, what it was. And now like I know a lot more. Like there's 3 different stages of menopause. It can happen at definitely young ages for lots of gynecological reasons, because lots of girls have messaged me to tell me that. And it's nice to see that shift and that little community form. And you're definitely like an active part of that. So yeah, would you like to talk a little bit about what you share about menopause?
So I suppose you can almost say this for so many of the different conditions or time periods that women go through, but one of them is menopause. It's so little spoken about it, very little information. It's almost like not normalized in a way. And I suppose the thing with menopause is while it can come on at the average age, which is about 51, it can come on much earlier than that. And that might be because of a condition or because of a treatment like radiotherapy, or you may have an underlying condition, and there's a few genetic disorders that are associated with it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then sometimes, you'll meet women who just go through an early menopause and there is no cause found for it. I think it's really important for women to be aware of the symptoms and signs, but B, to realize that there is treatment if they want it. And you can go down the path of HRT, or you can look into some more holistic therapies. But it's not something you have to put up with, and something can be done.
That's so true. And I think women kind of have that entire mentality when it comes to like extreme PMS issues, any kind of mental health issues or the menopause issues. And I think it's so important that you're sharing that kind of information. Yeah, I definitely think that this shift is needed for
Yeah,
gynecological issues, because like again, like so many of my girlfriends just, I think once you open the door to start talking about yourself and being vulnerable, like so much more comes flooding in. I can imagine like you get a lot of messages as well
yeah.
from different types of situations. Do you
It
man
does. Sorry,
you
go
got
on.
do
Just yeah,
lots of young people like ask for advice, or does that
yeah. So I
happen?
suppose, or kind of more, what people do is, because I suppose, like every now and then I'll have to highlight, like, I can't give personal medical advice, but
Yeah.
very frequently I'll get messages like, I didn't realize that wasn't normal. I didn't realize something could be done about that. I didn't realize I could talk to my GP about that. And it goes for all the things we talk about. And it's just amazing how much, I don't know, nobody is kind of advocating for women about their health and what they can do about it. So it's really opened my eyes to that.
I'm surprised, like, though, as well, that you even have the time and energy, because doctors have such crazy busy days. Like, how do you have energy for all of that, too?
I'm commuting at the moment to work, so I get the train and it's about an hour and 20 minutes both ways. So I have like that extra hour where I'm just on my phone, which I suppose you could argue, I spend too much time on my phone, but I enjoy it. So it doesn't really feel like it's work or something like that.
Because you're also, like, really helping people throughout the day. And then you're saying on your commute home, when, like, that's your time, you are still turning on to help people. Like, there's a lot to be said for that. Like, that's amazing, Sarah, that you do that.
And
It's
think about it.
really, really
Took
good.
a little break, I think, a week ago. I took kind of just the week off, because every now and then I think you need a little week to just focus on yourself. So I do that kind of periodically. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's no,
that's important, definitely, because you
yeah,
have to watch, I suppose, the headspace when you're online. It can be overwhelming, especially when people are like reaching out with their difficult stories. It's hard to not absorb that sometimes. I struggle with that, definitely. Yeah, so as you were saying, it was really nice. You just kind of posted recently about a PMS content post, which was really helpful and informative, because again, like, I want people to check that out, because you do highlight the things that a lot of us brush off as normal that aren't necessarily normal, or could flag another underlying issue, as you say. But you kind of also mentioned the little bit about the holistic therapies and complementary therapies and how they can be of benefit to women. And I'm so glad that you did, because you just don't really see that so much from the medical side of things. Like, I've been in and out of hospital since I'm 9, because my lung disease was hereditary. So I eventually got diagnosed and was obviously like in and out of hospital my whole life. And like, I only started finding out about holistic complementary therapies when I had cancer, because the Cancer Society offers a lot of like free reflexology and acupuncture and like lymphatic drainage, all those good kind of things. And had I known, like, all my life, Jesus, like, I think my quality of life would have been a lot better. Because now, like, I've gone through the mill and I'm probably like the most well I've ever been, which is mental when I think about it. I even have COVID right now and I don't feel that bad. It finally got me. So yeah, do you think like there's a little bit of a shift happening in Ireland when it comes to complementary therapies? Is there a little bit more acknowledgement? I don't know, sometimes it might depend on the group of person you're kind of talking to. Some people are probably still brushing it off as kind of woo-woo stuff, but what's your take on it?
I think it's kind of being driven by, we'll just say, the people. So I think, for a long time, um, kind of Western medicine, for just want of a better word, has let people down, and the medical specialty has let people down, and people have kind of looked elsewhere for help. And so it's only from me kind of talking to women and seeing it on Instagram, will say that, the doctor ignored all my symptoms and just put me on the pill, and I just do all this myself. And it's only when I started looking into it I realized, yeah, okay, yeah, I learned in college and that the pill can be great in some circumstances, and for some women it would be great. But it's not for everyone, and to assume that one treatment option will suit everyone is so wrong. And I think it's, we're doing people a disservice by only prescribing kind of medical therapies when there can be so much more other things utilized to help, a variety of conditions. So it's actually, I think, I would say through social media that it's opened my eyes to all of this, and following people, I suppose, like yourself, that I realized, okay, there's much more out there that can be utilized to help people.
Wow, that's really interesting because I'm like the other end of it. I've learned so much about medical facts and
Yeah,
information and like the opposite of the misinformation I've been getting through accounts like you. So that's an interesting take for both of
yeah.
us. I never would have known that had we not had this chat. That's really funny.
But I definitely think then there would be some people in the medical field that might, see me suggesting things like acupuncture and think that I am woo woo, but off with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you learn that about being, putting anything online. You have to just let
Yeah.
go of what people think about you. For me, that's actually been like harder with people that I know, like
Yeah.
my closer circle. I'm way more paranoid about. I don't care what a stranger thinks about me,
Yeah.
but like the people that have watched me grow up not being into holistic therapies and not being an advocate are probably like, what is she doing? Who is this alter ego? But it's so important to be able to do that. Hey guys, did you know that my breathwork coaching services are officially live for you to book into? Why not expand your inner growth journey even further with me and book into my weekly workshops held every Wednesday evening, or one of my Feel It Out drop in sessions held every Tuesday and Thursday evenings? If you are particularly struggling with something such as grief, overwhelm, self confidence issues, motivation, chronic fatigue, or pain, book in for a free consultation before attending some of my one-to-one breathwork coaching with me. You can find out more at breathewithaoife.com. I was also just wondering about the topic of mental health and mental well-being. I think when you speak about misinformation, there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of like pressure for people to live a certain lifestyle or kind of engage in these certain self-care acts. And obviously I'm so for self-care and well-being in general, but I think it would be nice to kind of have a doctor's opinion and advice on the stuff that we've all been affected by the pandemic, which it's still kind of lingering in a lot of us, like anxiety, low moods, depression. It's definitely something I was suffering from and probably still am. I actually take a small dose of an antihistamine. I was going to say that's because I had allergies at me today. Antidepressant is what I meant to say. Affects her, and I've taken that since the pandemic kind of started, and that's for me been like life changing. It's given me, I suppose, the mental energy to do the other things I know that help me. But that's my experience. I know that's not everyone's experience with medication, but I do think that medication can get a bad rep, especially for anxiety and depression. But that's anyway, sorry, that's my 2 cents on things. But I'd love to hear like yours as a doctor, as a professional. Are you still kind of seeing or hearing from people that are feeling low from those kind of issues?
I think maybe less so with us because, I'd say if you were to speak to a GP, certainly, or someone who's working in general medicine, they might see it more. But certainly, even just from my own friends, family, like I don't know how anyone would have gone through the pandemic and not have been affected to some degree, whether it be, total isolation, health anxieties, anxiety about friends and family, a total disruption to your work life, your travel, your friends, etc. I think, maybe only in a few years will we actually look back and realize what we really all went through. And I think it's the same as, sorry, when I even talk about the topics, PMS and menopause. And usually I like to split it up and say, these are the medical options, these are the holistic options, these are the dietary options. And I think mental health is the same. You can utilize a combination of things, and what works for you won't necessarily work for someone else. So and just as you said, I understand that antidepressants can get a bad rep, but to knock them off, I think totally is wrong, because I'm sure you can find hundreds of people who will say, I couldn't live without my antidepressants. They have changed my life. They allow me to be a mom. They allow me to work. They allow me to maintain my relationship. And will they work for everybody? No. But that doesn't mean that, they're not an option that's available. I often think one of the things when it comes to mental health is it almost doesn't come to the forefront until it's gone bad, if that makes sense. So just for example, we brush our teeth to prevent decay, and we take this vitamin to prevent it being low, and we exercise to prevent XYZ. When it comes to mental health, I think certainly myself, but I think in general, we don't do anything to prevent it becoming bad. We only kind of think about it and try and fix it when it's gone bad, if that makes sense. And I think, we need to do more to protect it. And that's going to look different for everybody. So, for one person, it may be, deleting a social media app that induces anxiety in them. For another, it might be a change of job. For another, it might be getting outside 20 minutes a day. I think we all have something that we could look at and say, if I changed that, I think it would really improve how I feel. So I think, more could be done maybe to protect it from declining in the first instance. And if it is low, to look at the variety of options that are available to you, and I suppose to not dismiss medication in the first instance.
That's such an interesting way to describe it, but it's so relatable. I've never actually really even thought about it that way myself. That's so true,
Yeah,
because there are a lot of preventative therapies that also they don't just cover your physical health. A lot of them cover your mental well-being, like especially like the traditional Chinese medicine ones, like acupuncture, reflexology, and then obviously I'm a huge believer in breath work.
yeah,
That's really helped me obviously learn how to breathe optimally, even though I have a lung disease. But also
yeah,
like it kind of brings the trapped stuff that stick kind of creates us from being stuck in our lives and having mental clarity. It's amazing the connection, because once you get some more mental clarity, or you go to a therapist, or you process what you've gone through in life, your physical body definitely benefits. I think that's
mm,
probably why I feel as well as I do, despite having like um more lung like bugs living in my chest than I've ever had before. I've only gone through like radiotherapy, a hysterectomy, but I do feel so much more, I suppose, vitality in me because
yeah,
I'm doing the work. It's quite interesting to see the connection. I think it
yeah.
just that connection always blows my mind. Always blows my mind. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover in this little podcast chat, or are you satisfied?
I'm satisfied. I think just my thing with kind of every single thing I talk about is for women to A, not put up with things, and B, to advocate for themselves. Because I think, you know, I always think that people might call me sexist, but I always think that if half the things that could potentially happen to women happen to men, it would be a totally different story. Like if a man had urinary incontinence, he would not put up with it. You just know he wouldn't. And I feel like he was listened to. And while it's, I suppose, it's our job as healthcare professionals to listen to women, while that's changing, I really think women need to advocate for themselves and not put up with crap.
I think that's so true. And I think I'm actually really seeing that even as I try to look for female experts that advocate on social media and talk about things, like I'm actually actively trying to find a man. Like there's way more women who are taking a step forward and getting this happening. I really am struggling to get like male advocates for
Yeah.
mental health, or well, obviously you can't really cover like menopause and IVF and that kind of thing as much, but there's way more females, which is so good to see. And I
Um,
definitely agree with you, like going through cancer, I have learned that women are absolutely phenomenal. Like Christ, even like younger women, like when I started my journey, I was God, was I was 27 when I got diagnosed with cervical cancer, and so were a load of other women in this world. And the stories they have, like women had gone through IVF where I just froze my egg, but some people went ahead and created embryos. They weren't married at the time, those embryos, then they broke up with the partner. So there's, what do I do with these embryos? These kind of life decisions that women had to deal with. It's just like blown my mind completely. Especially then when it comes to the menopause again, you're so right. Like, there's just no way my boyfriend would let anything disturb his sleep. Like,
no,
Christ almighty. Like, there's no way he'd survive 6 hot flushes a day, low libido. Like, no way.
but not.
It's crazy. It's so crazy. But it's so great to see the kind of women taking a step forward like yourself. You do such an amazing job online, and it's been brilliant to have you here and to clear up some really important topics. I just have a little rapid fire round for you. So our first question is, what are your favorite health and wellness advice that you've learned over the years, I suppose, as a doctor or as a patient, or what would it be?
Yeah, I think mine has been more just about the general run of the mill self care things. And by that I mean, you know, exercise to some degree. You know, I used to think that meant, you know, running 10K, etc. And now it's like get outside for a walk, eat well. And again, by that I just mean, you know, there's sometimes I have a beige diet, which is like pizza, pasta, bread.
Yum.
And I know, yes, but I feel like shite when I do it. So it's to make sure that I'm getting something in and sleep. So just to do the basics has just really improved how I feel, you know, in my general life, and it improves what I'm able to do with my days.
There's a lot to be said for that for sure. And what makes you truly happy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's either going for, I just love going for dinner. I love going for dinner. I love seeing the new restaurants that pop up in Dublin and going to them and having a glass of wine, or travel. I absolutely love travel. And
Oh
I think
yes, girl after my
not
own heart.
not being able to do it during COVID even, you know, highlighted it even more how much I love it.
Did you get to go many places since then, or?
Yeah, I've been away maybe 3 times since things opened up, but just within Europe, so not too far, just in case something
Yeah, I
changed.
know, I know. Well, I'm only back from Spain, and yeah, dosed up with COVID here, so I'm not going to say any more on that one. And then your favorite healthy like lifestyle habit that if you wish like we could all do, like we all need to do, or you particularly helps you, like a lifestyle healthy habit.
Sleep. When I,
Really?
yeah, when I was younger, so like early 20s, I would get by 5 hours, no bother. And now if I don't, you know, I can do 1 or 2 5 hours a week, but if I'm doing that consistently, my mood is low, my bowels aren't working, I'm like a briar, I don't eat well, I'm too tired to exercise, do you know, there's this massive knock-on effect. I used to think I was, you know, one of these super people that could get by with no sleep, but I am not. And it has so many knock-on effects on how other parts of my health are. So I just really now appreciate sleep.
So do you have like a nice sleep hygiene routine then to get on top of that, or how do you make sure you're getting decent sleep?
Try. I try to put away my phone an hour before I hope I'm going to sleep. So
Okay,
let us
that's
know.
good.
And then reading in bed, I always get sleepy reading, and I would use the Headspace app. So it's, you know, it's different mindfulness tracks, or there's the wind down tracks. So I usually do one of those as well.
Gorgeous. And what do you recommend for optimum sleep hours?
Does it depend on the person? I find myself, if I get 7, it's a big massive difference.
Only 7. Oh God, I'd sleep for Ireland.
Yeah, but if I 7 to 8, I suppose it makes a world of difference. And I suppose different people have their own, set amounts that they
So,
need.
yeah, that's very true. Like
But
at the
not
moment,
like
I think I had my breakfast today at 1 o'clock, but that's because I have COVID. I'm not
that's
that
fair.
lazy generally. Oh my God, stop. I'm just sleeping around the clock. I don't know how I've had the energy to even have this great conversation, but I'm so glad that I did. Sarah, thanks a million for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, where can all our listeners find you?
So I have an Instagram page and it's at Dr. Sarah J. Murphy.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Make sure you check out Sarah's Instagram page. She has amazing, helpful content, especially for the female followers. And tune in next time for the next episode of We Share, We Grow. I hope you found this week's episode as awe-inspiring as I did. As I always say, knowledge is power, and I know you've gained an abundance of both from this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can watch these episodes over on my YouTube channel, Breathe with Aoife. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to We Share, We Grow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoyed this episode, please donate over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Breathe with Aoife, to help me gain the means to share and grow even more with you all. Thanks for listening.